Can no one tell me a good...
To the rescue!
Hello and welcome to The Mint. I'm Cecilia Kamputa and you're joining us live from our Z10 studios in Harare. And fiction and performance by the iconic Tonga River dating climate crisis, the rapid rise of AI, and the ever-growing threats of cyber insecurity. From the devastating legacy of the Kariba Dam, pressing questions are this and the I'm joined in the studio by the Zebra Collective, multidisciplinary artist Masimba Wati and Professor of Music, Professor Michael Gould, as we look at the arts confronting social and ecological scars with the Nyami Nyami installation and performance. Gentlemen, welcome to The Mint and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
And congratulations on the exhibition performance coming home to Zimbabwe.
Thank you.
So to begin with, I wanted to talk about the name, the Zebra Collective. Why did you choose that name and how did you arrive at it?
So, Michael and I, we met in Berlin in 2022.
Okay.
And it so happened that the zebra is an animal that we all admire.
Okay.
And it happens to be my totem as well.
Okay.
So it's also in Michael's life and history, the zebra appears in and out. So Michael can talk about zebra in his own life.
Yeah, I'm the music director for a dance company in Berlin, and they had an exhibit of all these origami different animals, and I took a picture of the zebra because I love zebras and sent it to Masimba. Who we've met each other in, I think, 2016 or
2017.
2017,
Yeah.
and so I sent it to him, and that gave us the idea for becoming the Zebra Collective.
All right,
Yes.
So getting into the art, the Nyami Nyami draws on a deep cultural and ecological history. How did you approach blending this powerful local myth with contemporary art forms and also using digital technology? Maybe you can start.
Sure, yeah. For the last 10 years, I've been involved in a project called A World Without Ice, and it was with the former Vice President Al Gore's chief science officer, who wrote a book called A World Without Ice, and it deals with both the Arctic and the Antarctic and how climate change has impacted both poles. And my colleague Henry Pollack, who wrote the book and who studied both poles for the last 40 years, took pictures. And so we were paired together as a kind of a interesting collaboration between myself, another colleague, Stephen Rush, who's a pianist and composer, and myself. And we started to play around with the idea of using his photos for the last 40 years along with climate data for the last 100 years.
Okay.
And that data has informed our music making. And so I used big chunks of ice that melted onto drums that were amplified. So because I'm a drummer, that's what I do for a living, using my lead to Masimba and I kind of working together about Nyami Nyami and the Kariba Dam. I didn't know anything about it, of course, but Masimba informed me about the myth, the deity Nyami Nyami, and then we just took that from there. It was really exciting, and I got to visit 2 years ago the Zambezi, and that was really great for me to get kind of the spray of Victoria Falls over me and talk to some of the local guides.
And for you, Masimba, how did you approach blending the historical aspects of the Kariba and the Nyami Nyami and its technological side?
Right. So when I saw Michael's work, A World Without Ice, I immediately thought of our own immediate problems with ecology. Of course, we don't have ice, we don't have snow here. But there's something happening that has been happening on the Kariba Dam that we don't talk about that much. The dam itself was a colonial idea. You know, it was not an idea from the people who lived there. And in general, dams are not a good idea. So, because it's a disruption of the flow, there are a lot of consequences, including the displacement of people. As you know, 83,000 people were displaced when the dam was built. And a lot of more people lost their lives in the construction. So for me, the most immediate idea was, oh, we need to think about Nyami Nyami. Because if you know the myth of Nyami Nyami, the dam took longer to finish because myth says that Nyami Nyami was fighting the construction of the dam.
Okay.
Because apparently the dam separated Nyami Nyami from his wife. You know, so Nyami Nyami immediately becomes this symbol of ecological resistance, whereby nature is saying this is not a good idea. So nature pushes back. So to me, Nyami Nyami was this powerful idea that was rooted in the history of the people, but also that is deeply connected with the ecology and how people are connected to their environment. So a world without ice used a lot of technology. And I was saying, let's think through how we can look at the issue of the Kariba Dam and use the same framework of just ecological inquiry. You know, as artists, what is our role when we have these big problems? What do we do as artists? So Nyami Nyami came out from that background.
All right. And
Yeah.
as you said, the story of Kariba Dam is one of both environmental devastation and human displacement. What message are you hoping Zimbabweans take away from this reimagining of our history?
Right, so I'll start and I will throw to Mike. So the Kariba Dam, we grew up knowing it as a place where we go for holiday, right?
Yeah.
And visit. But we never talked so much about the history of the dam, how the dam came to be, or what was the cost of the dam in terms of the lives of people, the culture of people. So I think what we are hoping for the people of Zimbabwe, and actually for the people of the world,
Yeah.
is to start conversations around some of these big ecological problems that we have. We don't believe that art is the solution. We believe that we can start a conversation. So this is where we are. Throw it to Mike.
Thank you. I think that, you know, I live in the United States. It's a very divisive time, and climate change is also a very divisive topic. And so what our goal is really to not choose any one side per se, but let people have a conversation. Let the story emerge for each person who comes to see our installation, and let them come to terms with what's going on around where they live. And so we're not trying to push any one narrative, but we're trying to open this up for their own narrative to appear while they listen to what we're playing and what they're seeing what we do.
All right. And your work has been performed internationally. How does presenting Nyami Nyami in Zimbabwe shift meaning or impact for you as artists? Maybe Mike, you can start.
Yeah, I think having played it, you know, first in Berlin and in the United States, and then we're in South Africa. I think what happens is that people's stories, again, people are bringing their own kind of baggage with them, right?
Okay.
And their own bias. You know, we all have bias of some sort. And so they see and hear what they want to see and hear.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important that we as artists stay open to that, and also that we're trying to open up people to take a different look if they have a certain biases about a particular, you know, like something like climate change or something like the Kariba Dam or Nyami Nyami. Let's just be open. Let's start a conversation. So it is really nice to be here. I have to say, I've really enjoyed being in Zimbabwe, and being at the National Gallery is a real honor. And so having kind of set this up, it's going to be very interesting to see how people react to what we're doing.
All right. And Masimba, do you believe that the installation and performance of Nyami Nyami will inspire not only environmental conversations, but action and policy change beyond the gallery rules, maybe starting in Zimbabwe?
I hope so. I think our job as artists is to bring to the forefront questions, even difficult questions, so that we can start to talk about things. And I think Nyami Nyami is an important cultural symbol. I think everybody in Zimbabwe knows what nyami nyami is, at least. We have seen it in the tourist walking sticks or pendants or necklaces. So we already have the basic knowledge, the base of what nyami nyami is and what the caribadem is. But I think now we need to go a little bit deeper into say, okay, we have this big construction, this dam that was built in the 60s, and it's causing a lot of problems. But at the same time, Zambia and Zimbabwe depend on it for power. So what do we do going on into the future? Because we are not only thinking about ourselves. Should we build more dams? What are the alternative sources of energy? What do we do with the already existing dams? Maybe how do we maintain it? How do we think of the displaced people? I think our government has been doing that a lot, but I think the conversation needs to be grassroots. You know, we need to start from the bottom. Everyday people need to talk more about nyami nyami, about the dam, and about what it means to have, to be in Zimbabwe at such a time and to think through this problem.
All right. Now time for us to take a breather. After the break, we move on to the business aspect of art. Don't go anywhere. The Mint will be right back.
Harare. Tune into the beat.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, your source for news, business, sports, fashion, and more.
Experience the pulse of Harare's culture and lifestyle.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, Harare's top radio station.
Join the conversation with Zimbabwe's top personalities.
Subscribe now for fresh and infotainment content daily.
Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's heartbeat.
Welcome back to the Mint. We're joining you live from Mars 10 Studios. I'm Cecilia Kamputa, and I'm still joined in the studio by Masimba Wati and Professor Michael Gold. Now, gentlemen, we move to the dollars and cents aspects of art. For Masimba, how would you describe the current relationship that is there between the business and art sectors, and maybe what are the practical steps that are needed to be taken to strengthen collaboration between the two?
Right, so I will be brief. So when we went to art school, it was purely art. We were not taught the business side of art.
Okay.
The syllabus did not have that. But this is something that you have to contend with throughout your career. You have to also deal with the business side of art. So I think the first thing is to rethink the educational policy on art, or maybe to rethink the current syllabi of art. How do we cross-pollinate the idea of art? How do we get business to be a small part of art education? I went to school at Harare Poly, and we had a business department, but we were like two islands. So the first challenge is how do we connect? Okay. You know, it sounds like an easy question, but it takes a lot of thinking and a lot of planning.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting is, you know, in a 24-hour day, you can't be creating art or music in 24 hours. So you have all this other time to be thinking about how you can make your art and music work for you.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more and more important for, like, for example, I teach at the University of Michigan, so it's important for our students to be well versed in music business and even contract law and intellectual property rights, things that are super important when they leave school and they start signing contracts and trying to earn money, that they understand the legalese behind what they're doing and that they retain their intellectual property. And so I think it's really important. And for Masimba and I, as a Zebra Collective, you know, we talk about, okay, well, we're also a business. You know, we would love to make art 100% of the time.
But you also want to make money, yeah.
Yeah, but we also have to like sustain ourselves in various ways, and that trying to sustain ourselves requires tough conversations about how we're going to do the next thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
And maybe for you, coming from outside of Zimbabwe, what can Zimbabweans or Zimbabwean artists and the business sector as well maybe copy from the US, maybe copy from Germany, how they can push for better collaboration?
Yeah, well, I mean, interestingly enough, I go to this really gigantic convention for percussionists. So there's like 6,000 percussionists at the Percussive Art Society. And this last November, I met Othniel, amazing musician, kalimba player, drummer from here, from Harare, who went to Music Crossroads, which we just went to yesterday. Okay. And first of all, he's a fantastic musician. But the other thing, he's a beautiful person, and it was such a pleasure to meet him. And he met so many of us, and he traveled across the whole United States. And now it's so exciting to be here and to play with him tomorrow. And so I think just being open and trying to, you know, cross borders is really important. But like we mentioned before too, I think, well, first of all the youngsters are great at social media and things, and this is a very important way to start collaborating with other people, because they're going to find out about your work. It doesn't happen in a vacuum, and I think the more that you could put your work out, the more people are going to find out. And it's, you know, as a drummer, you know, I can play and everything, but it's also like how I meet and greet people, and trying to be nice and open. And when I come to a place like Zimbabwe, being open to a new place, a new culture, it's very important to be open and just to shake people's hands and find out more about what they're doing, and that blossoms into really nice collaborations.
All right, and also still on the subject of money, what are some of the barriers that are there for local artists in monetizing their projects, monetizing their work, and maybe steps that they can also take to be able to monetize their work and make a living out of that? Right.
So for the longest time, Zimbabwean art has had a very big foreign market. So most of the artists that you see who are successful in Zimbabwe, they have foreign markets. They are selling work or doing something outside of Zimbabwe, which is a great idea. But I think there is also another way that artists need to think about, is really looking inward here. Maybe not so much big profits or selling things for 10,000 US, but I'll give an example of Lever Brothers. During the time of the unilateral declaration of independence, before that, Lever Brothers had an international market. They were selling soap all over the place, all over the world. But because of the UDI, they could not sell their soap outside of Zimbabwe. So they started focusing on the local market, and they discovered that if we sell 2 bars of soap to each household in Zimbabwe, we can probably make more than what we were making internationally, because there are tax laws and there are import, export, customs. You deal with all kinds of things. And also, foreign markets are protecting their markets. So the Lever Brothers became big by looking inward. Okay. You know, of course, later it looked outward again. So I think what artists need to think about is also how can we serve our communities? Yeah. You know, maybe even in small ways. How can we get our people to benefit from our services, or how can we create services for our own people? There are many ways we can do that.
You know, we just met someone in Johannesburg. Her name's Stacy, and she goes by Curious Sleuth, and she's an artivist. Okay. And she's doing all kinds of interesting things in the community to work with youngsters to try to teach them. She does crocheting and knitting and things with fabric and fiber artists. And so she's making all these different workshops for students, for young people to also become great artists. But it also gets her materials out there, and it's a way for her to sustain herself, which is really nice. So she has her practice, her artistic practice, but then she also has this kind of educational outreach activist sort of slant, which is really, it was fun for us to see.
All right, but I wanted to also ask Mike, how do you balance trying to be commercially successful and also remaining authentic to yourself, your art, and all?
Well, I mean, personally, I'm in a very lucky spot because I teach at a university.
Okay.
And so Ms. Sim has a great saying for me. He's like, the best time to do art is when you retire. And for me, it's, I don't have to worry as much about that, but we together are always thinking about, well, we have this large-scale installation at the National Gallery. What can we make that's smaller? And how can we kind of market that so that people can take home a part of what we're doing? And it's something meaningful for them as well. So we're not trying to mass produce something, but we're trying to make things that might be smaller, that people will treasure and they can hang on their wall or put on their desk. And so we're kind of upscaling the small things, and the large things we can save for museums or galleries and things. So.
All right, and Masimba, seeing how African art is now gaining the global spotlight, and how are you as an African artist trying to maybe stop the art, being misrepresented, or maybe issues around consumerism?
Right. So that's an interesting question. I think it's a big task to stop misrepresentation anywhere in the world. But maybe what I can say is, when you are an artist, the best way to start from in your practice is from your indigenous knowledge system. Right now we are working on Nyami Nyami, right? This is something that is rooted in the indigenous knowledge system of Zimbabwe. So in that way, you can develop that idea with a base or a root that you are standing on. And I think misrepresentation will always be there, but I think if we start from indigenous knowledge systems, thinking through those, and then developing new ideas from them, it's a good way of balancing the way that information flows between cultures.
All right, and we are in a global world where technological advancements are so rapid now. Are you integrating some AI tools into your artwork, into your art practices, and what risks or maybe classes that are there for artists, especially for you, Mike?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. So first, I think as someone who teaches college students, they're using AI all the time to write papers. And so, it becomes like this kind of pitfall of where they're trying to access knowledge.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think we all have to be careful of is how when we do use AI, is what it's giving us back. The information is correct or not, and is it in the tone or tenor of what we would write as a person, and is it in the tone or tenor as an artist? So like, you want your stuff. I want to be creative, and I want my writing to be from my own voice. So I have used ChatGPT. I think it's an amazing tool, but I always write first, and maybe I'll feed it into the bot to spit back something for clarification. But the most important thing is to read through it and see that it's correct. But I will say there's, yesterday I saw this incredible video of a professor from MIT in the United States who is using AI for art restoration. And the beginning was amazing because he scanned a really old painting that was highly damaged. But what was amazing is that they printed different layers of mylar, not mylar, but some kind of film to go over the painting, and they used lacquer. And so they fixed the painting 70 times faster than one could do by hand. And so there's all these museums all over the world that have art that's damaged that they're not showing to the public. And this is a method that might daylight some of that art that's hiding. And so it was really fascinating. So that, like you said, the speed in which AI is happening is incredible, and to see AI and then come into the analog world where it's actually used in both, so it's spitting out something that we can hold and then we put it on something that's really old, was fascinating. So, yeah.
And maybe Masimba, you can speak briefly on the installation and performance that is opening tomorrow at the gallery, and Mike can also do that briefly.
Right, so tomorrow at 5:30 we perform Nyami Nyami at the National Gallery. Everybody is welcome. And just to give you an idea of what the installation looks like, we have pools of water which are representative of Shona stargazing pools, where our ancestors, when they were looking at the stars, they were looking in pools. They were not looking up, but they were looking at the reflection. So we have those pools on the ground. We also have sculptures that are made from guitars and modified with spears and other things. So they are alive.
Okay.
And we have Mike on the drum set, and I will be playing some electronics. And maybe Mike, you can talk about some of the elements there.
Yeah, and so because I used parts and pieces of percussion and drums, so we have drum heads that represent kind of the river. There's a water that flows through them, and they go into those stargazing pools. And the electric guitars are kind of these spirit protectors. And then we have bowls floating in the pools that are kind of representative, looking up at nature. So we created this ecosystem about Nyami, but also kind of a portal that lets people in to think about the whole thing.
All right. And for you, the last question, how can African artists, including those from Zimbabwe, shape global conversations around tech, AI, digital creativity? Very briefly.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Zimbabwean and African artists are already doing that. We could do that more.
Yeah.
And again, I'll go back to indigenous knowledge systems. We have very powerful indigenous knowledge systems where we can think through them and think towards technology.
All right. And Mike, in 2 seconds.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
All right.
It's nice to be here.
All right. Masimba and Mike, thank you very much for joining us today on The Mint.
Thank you
For having us.
Thanks.
All right. Now, that is all we had for you in today's episode of The Mint. I'm Cecilia Kamputa. Good afternoon and pleasant viewing.